I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make it easier to read. And for phosphorus, we're going to go across. We're going to have land, land, land. When you get to the third square, dip down a little bit, make a little bit of like an ocean or lake, and come back up.
All right, I want to write phosphorus.
There we go. First thing in the phosphorus cycle is we're going to create mountains. You can make them snow-capped if you want. The reason why we're starting with mountains is because the major component of phosphorus being added is from erosion that happens with mountains. Or any land. The erosion of land contributes to inorganic phosphate. Inorganic phosphate is phosphate that contains no carbon. Hence the inorganic. Organic would mean carbon. Inorganic means no carbon. We're going to add our tree. We're going to put our fruit on the tree. We're going to draw our guy with his apple. He does. And we're going to label that consumption just like everything else. The way that you get your phosphorus is eating. It's in fruits and vegetables. But he's still going to die. Even though he's getting all of his nitrogen and phosphorus through eating of these the apples, he's still going to die. We've got death. Now decomposers will come in, start eating his body, and they'll contribute to that phosphate. They'll break down his body and put that phosphate into the soil, which will then be taken up by the plants. Some of that phosphate, though, will not be taken up by the soil, and it will undergo burial and compaction. And it will produce phosphate-containing rock. Rock. Yep. How do mountains form? Yep. And if those two plates come together and they start crunching up against each other, they're going to form a mountain. So this phosphate-containing rock could eventually be lifted up to form a mountain. And that's geological uplift. The process of plates moving earth up to form that mountain. We have to have our sun shining down its energy onto the plant. Now that erosion that occurred that allowed some of the mountain phosphate to enter the soil could also occur and enter into the river. So we've got two types of erosion on the land and erosion into aquatic ecosystems. It would still be called erosion. Runoff implies that it's soluble in water, which it is, but this is literal like particles of rock falling into the water, or phosphate. So we've got these aquatic plants that take up the phosphorus. Which will then be eaten by fish. And to complete the whole nice little cycle of life, those fish will be eaten by seabirds. What is not eaten by the birds the fish will die. Burial and compaction, and add to that phosphate containing rock at the bottom. We're going to add an island here in the middle of this ocean. We can add some mountains to it. And the birds like to visit it. And maybe there's some bats there too. And if you have enough birds and bats on the island, wherever you have birds and bats, you end up having a lot of what? Yep. And poop has a lot of phosphate, and we call that guano. So this is going to be Guano Island. Probably not a favorite vacation destination, but just a whole bunch of phosphorus containing bat poop and bird poop on that island. I know. We're going to add some crops, we're going to add a home, and we're going to add a lawn over there on the right hand side. We can take the phosphorus in the guano and add it to the crops as artificial fertilizer. And this is through mining of the, so this is mining that's occurring of the guano, taking it to a separate location and adding it as fertilizer. Some of that phosphorus, though, could be taken and put into your home for soap. Phosphorus is a component of the soap that you find in your homes. Now, if you have too much phosphorus, you can have runoff. And you can also have runoff from your home. So there's an arrow going from the house to the runoff that's coming off of the fertilizer from the crops too. The reason why it comes from your home is when you wash your clothes or you use dishwashing detergent, it has phosphate in it. And eventually that phosphate will get into the sewer system. And even if the wastewater treatment plant treats your water from your dishwasher or your washing machine, they don't have a way to take phosphate out. So even when it goes back into the lake or the ocean, it still has the phosphate from your soap or detergent. All of that excess will create a lot of algae, which we call an algae bloom. When those algae die, they get eaten by the decomposers. And when those decomposers eat the dead algae, they use a lot of the what in the water. Very good. So you have a decrease in the oxygen. And for any fish that might be living in the water, a decrease in oxygen is not a good thing, which will result in a decrease in the fish. These two things combined, a decrease in oxygen and a decrease in fish, we call a dead zone. What other cycle had a dead zone involved in it? Nitrogen. Okay. That is the phosphorus cycle. What you might notice about the phosphorus cycle is it's missing a certain state of matter. We never find phosphorus in this state. Yeah, there's no gas phase. So there's no gaseous form of phosphate that gets put into the atmosphere like in nitrogen or carbon or water. That's what makes it unique. And that's what you kind of need to know about the phosphorus cycle. There's less involved in this one than in the nitrogen cycle. So spend your time on both, but make sure that you're really spending some time looking at that nitrogen cycle. 10 minutes.